Hey guys, tonight we slip into the smoky, earthy embrace of a Viking longhouse, where the air hums with the tang of smoked fish and the low crackle of the fire pit. Picture this. You're standing on a packed mud floor, the faint scent of damp straw and livestock tickling your nose, while shadows from the flickering hearth dance across timber walls. It's cramped, it's loud, and honestly, you probably won't survive this without craving a shower by the end. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You push through the low doorway, ducking under a sagging lintel, and step into the Viking longhouse. The air hits you first, thick, warm, and heavy with the scent of wood smoke, drying herbs, and something faintly sour, like milk left out too long. Your eyes adjust to the dimness, the only light spilling from a central fire pit that stretches like a glowing spine down the length of the room. The longhouse is one big, open space, maybe 60 feet long and 20 feet wide. Its walls a patchwork of timber and wattle and daub, smeared with clay to keep out the wind. You're in 9th century Scandinavia, probably somewhere in Denmark or Norway, where these sturdy communal homes were the heart of Viking life. Historians note that longhouses were the standard dwelling from roughly 700 to 1000 CE, built to house entire extended families, their animals, and enough supplies to survive brutal winters. You glance around, taking in the chaos. There's no neat entryway, no welcome mat, just a jumble of wooden benches, piled furs, and scattered tools. A couple of chickens cluck underfoot, dodging your boots, and you nearly trip over a half-carved wooden spoon someone left on the floor. The roof above is a lattice of beams, blackened by years of smoke, with a small hole at one end to let out the haze. It's not exactly cozy, but it's alive. You hear laughter, a baby's wail, and the rhythmic thump of someone pounding grain nearby. This is home for 20, maybe 30 people, plus their goats, sheep, and the occasional pig. Privacy? Forget it. You're all in this together, for better or worse. Your boots sink slightly into the floor, hard-packed earth mixed with straw, a little damp from last night's rain seeping through the thatch. You notice the faint whiff of manure. The animals are penned at one end, their warmth necessity despite the smell. You sidestep a questionable puddle and make your way toward the fire pit, where a woman is skewering fish to hang above the flames. The longhouse's design is practical, built to withstand howling winds and snow, but it's not exactly a 5-star Airbnb. Scholars still debate whether these structures were as permanent as we think. Some argue smaller, temporary longhouses popped up for seasonal settlements, while others insist the big ones were multi-generational hubs. You pause, catching a quirky detail, a small carved figure, maybe a god or ancestor, tucked into a niche in the wall. It's not Odin or Thor, but something cruder, like a farmer's talisman for luck. These little charms are rarely mentioned in sagas, but turn up in archaeological digs, hinting at personal beliefs beyond the big-name Norse gods. You smirk, imagining some Viking whittling this during a long winter, probably muttering about the neighbor's loud snoring. Speaking of snoring, you hear it now, a deep, rattling sound from a bench where someone's napping under a pile of furs. It's barely noon, but in a longhouse, sleep happens when it can. You edge closer to the fire, feeling its warmth lick at your hands. The smoke stings your eyes, curling up to the roof's vent, but it's keeping the bugs at bay. You notice a kid nearby, maybe 8 years old, tossing knucklebones in a game that looks suspiciously like modern dice. He's cheating, obviously, nudging the bones with his foot when his friend isn't looking. You chuckle. Some things never change. The longhouse is a sensory overload, a mix of warmth, stench, and noise, but there's a strange comfort in its rawness. You're not just visiting. You're living it mud and all. And trust me, there's plenty more mud to come. You're drawn to the heart of the Longhouse, where the fire pit glows like a beacon in the dim, smoky haze. The flames crackle, spitting sparks that drift upward, mingling with the thick scent of burning pine and drying fish. You squat near the fire, feeling its warmth seep into your bones, a welcome shield against the damp chill creeping through the walls. This central hearth is the lifeblood of the Longhouse, stretching nearly the entire length of the room, a shallow trench lined with stones that's been burning for days, maybe weeks. It's not just for heat. It's where meals are cooked, tools are forged, and stories are shared when the sun dips below the horizon. You notice the smoke curling toward the roof's vent, but it's not enough to clear the air. Your eyes water, and you're already wondering how anyone breathes in here without coughing up a lung. The fire pit's glow casts flickering shadows on the faces around you. A woman tends the flames, tossing on a fresh log with practiced ease, while a man nearby sharpens an axe, the grindstones rasp blending with the fire's pop. You're in a Viking longhouse, somewhere in 9th century Scandinavia, and this hearth is a hub of survival. Historical records like those from archaeological sites in Ribe, Denmark, show these fire pits were meticulously maintained, often with specific woods chosen for their slow burn. Oak or birch, never anything too sappy that'd smoke you out worse than it already does. You watch the woman skewer another herring, its silvery skin glistening as she hangs it above the flames to smoke. The smell is intense, fishy, but oddly comforting, like the promise of food for weeks to come. You shift on your haunches, noticing the floor beneath you. Still that packed mud, now warmed by the fire but speckled with ash and fish scales. You're tempted to touch the glowing embers, but you rethink that fast when you see a kid nearby get a sharp scolding for doing the same. Burn your hand, and you're no use to anyone. The mother snaps, her voice carrying that universal parental mix of exasperation and care. You grin. Viking moms, apparently, are just as no-nonsense as modern ones. The fire's heat is a double-edged sword. It keeps you alive through freezing winters, but one stray spark can send the whole thatched roof up in flames. Historians still argue whether longhouses had dedicated fire tenders or if everyone just took turns keeping the blaze alive. Either way, it's a job you wouldn't want. A quirky detail catches your eye. A small pile of charred bones near the fire pit, not food scraps, but something deliberate, maybe an offering. Archaeological digs, like those at Birka, Sweden, have uncovered similar finds. Animal bones, sometimes horse or dog, burned as part of small, everyday rituals to appease spirits or gods. It's not the grand sacrifices of Norse sagas, but a quiet, personal act, like leaving a cookie for Santa. You imagine someone muttering a quick prayer to Freyr for a good harvest, tossing in a sheep bone, and hoping for the best. It's oddly endearing, this blend of practicality and superstition. You lean closer to the fire, warming your hands, but the smoke's getting to you now. You cough, earning a smirk from the axe-sharpening guy, who clearly thinks you're soft. City lungs, you mutter under your breath, and he laughs, proving Vikings aren't above a good jab. The fire pit's warmth is seductive, but it's also a reminder of how fragile this setup is. No chimney, no proper ventilation, just a hole in the roof and a lot of hope. You notice a clay pot simmering at the edge of the fire, filled with a barley porridge that smells bland but hearty. You're hungry, but you're not sure you're that hungry yet. The scene shifts as a gust of wind rattles the walls, sending a chill through the longhouse despite the fire's glow. You glance at the smoke hole above, where a faint sliver of gray sky peeks through. It's probably mid-afternoon, but in here, time feels slippery, marked only by the fire's rhythm and the tacit fuels. You spot a girl, maybe 10, feeding kindling to the flames, her hands smudged with soot. She's humming something tuneless, and you realize this fire pit isn't just a tool, it's the pulse of the longhouse, tying everyone together. You're starting to feel the weight of this place, its warmth and its burdens, and you're only just beginning to understand what it means to live here. You ease away from the fire pit's glow, your boots scuffing against the packed mud floor of the Viking Longhouse, where every step feels like a negotiation with the earth itself. The ground is uneven, a mix of dirt, straw, and who knows what else, compacted by years of trampling feet, but still soft in spots where last night's rain sneaked through the thatch. You nearly step on a stray sheep dropping, swerving just in time, and you can't help but grimace. This floor is the backbone of the Longhouse, literally holding up the lives of the 20-odd people and assorted livestock crammed in here, but it's about as glamorous as a barnyard. You're in 9th century Scandinavia, and this muddy, straw-strewn surface is your new reality. Cleanliness, it seems, is more a suggestion than a rule. You crouch to inspect the floor, noticing how it's not just dirt but a layered mess of straw, ash, and bits of bone or broken pottery, all ground into a gritty carpet. Archaeological evidence from sites like Lance Aux Meadows in Newfoundland shows these floors were often built up over time, with new layers of earth and straw added to cover the worst of the mess. It's practical, sure, but you're already itching for a pair of modern sneakers to keep the muck at bay. The straw scatters as you move, kicked up by your boots, and you notice a faint, musty smell, damp earth mixed with a faint tang of animal hide. It's not unbearable, but it's a far cry from the pine-scented candles you're used to. A woman nearby is sweeping the floor with a bundle of twigs, pushing debris toward the animal pens at the far end. She's fighting a losing battle, and you can't help but smirk. She's basically rearranging dirt. Good luck with that, you mutter, and she shoots you a look that says she's heard worse. You spot a kid nearby, maybe 6, gleefully stomping in a muddy patch near the door, making it worse. You chuckle. Viking kids, apparently, are just as good at making messes as modern ones. The floor's chaos is a constant reminder of how close to nature this life is. You're not walking on polished wood or stone. You're on the earth itself, for better or worse. A quirky tidbit catches your attention. A small, flat stone embedded in the floor near the fire pit, etched with a crude spiral. It's not decorative, more like someone's bored doodle or maybe a marker for a favorite spot. Digs at sites like Trelleborg, Denmark, have turned up similar stones, sometimes thought to be gaming pieces, or even boundary markers for family spaces within the Longhouse. You imagine some Viking carving it during a long winter, maybe betting his buddy he could make a better spiral. Historians still argue whether these marks were purely practical or held some ritual meaning. Maybe a charm to keep bad spirits from sneaking in with the mud. You take another step, and the floor squelches underfoot, making you wince. The dampness is a problem, especially in spring when the ground outside turns to sludge. You notice a few wooden planks laid near the doorway, probably an attempt to keep the worst of the mud out, but they're half buried in grime already. The Longhouse's walls, smeared with clay and straw, do their best to block the elements, but rain finds a way, dripping through the thatch and turning patches of floor into a sticky trap. You're starting to understand why everyone's boots look like they've seen a war. You glance at the woman sweeping again, and she's muttering something about the goats tracking in more mud. You sympathize. Cleaning this place feels like bailing out a sinking ship with a spoon. The floor's texture changes as you move toward the animal pens, where the straw is thicker, mixed with hay and, yes, more droppings. A sheep bleats at you, unimpressed by your presence, and you give it a wide berth. The animals are part of the Longhouse's ecosystem. Their body heat a winter necessity, but they make the floor a minefield. You spot a man tossing fresh straw over a particularly bad patch, and you're tempted to applaud his optimism. The Longhouse is a living, breathing space, and this muddy floor is its foundation. Messy, smelly, but enduring. You're starting to feel the rhythm of this place, where every step is a reminder of the earth beneath you. You shuffle through the Longhouse, the muddy floor still clinging to your boots, and find yourself drawn to a row of wooden benches lining the walls. each one a makeshift bed for the night. You ease onto one, the wood creaking under your weight, and realize these sleeping nooks are about as inviting as a pile of rocks. The bench is narrow, barely wide enough for you to lie down without rolling off, and it's covered with a lumpy pile of wool blankets and furs that smell faintly of sweat and smoke. You're in a 9th century Viking longhouse, and this is where you'll crash, assuming you can sleep through the snores, bleating goats, and the ever-present crackle of the fire pit. You pull a scratchy wool blanket over your shoulders, already regretting the lack of a memory foam mattress. The sleeping area is less a bedroom and more a communal crash pad. These benches, built into the walls, double as seating during the day and beds at night, shared by families or whoever's lucky enough to claim a spot. Archaeological digs at sites like Hedeby, Germany, show longhouses had these built-in platforms, often lined with straw or furs for insulation. You wiggle to get comfortable, but a stray twig in the straw pokes your back, and you mutter a curse under your breath. Comfort isn't the priority here. Survival is. The furs are heavy, probably from sheep or even bears, and they're warm, but it's like a bad sweater. You notice a kid nearby, curled up in a nook, clutching a carved wooden horse. It's cute, until you realize he's probably hogging the best blanket. You shift again, trying to find a position that doesn't feel like lie on a plank. And, well, it's a plank. The longhouse is alive with noise. Someone's coughing, a dog's whining, and the fire's still popping like it's got something to prove. You glance at the roof, where smoke swirls toward the vent, and wonder how anyone sleeps in this haze. Historians still argue whether Vikings used curtains or hides to partition these sleeping nooks for a bit of privacy. Some say yes. Others insist the open layout was a norm. Either way, you're not feeling private. The guy on the next bench is sprawled out, one boot dangling, and you're pretty sure he's dreaming of last night's fish stew, judging by the smell. A quirky detail catches your eye, a small bundle of dried herbs tucked into the bench's corner, maybe lavender or thyme meant to keep bugs at bay. Excavations in Norway have found traces of such plants in sleeping areas. A Viking life hack to fend off fleas, or worse. You smirk, imagining some poor soul thinking a sprig of thyme could win against a longhouse's ecosystem critters. Good luck with that, you whisper, and the kid with the wooden horse stirs, giving you a sleepy glare. You're starting to get why everyone looks so tired here. Sleep is a battle fought against hardwood, itchy furs, and the neighbor's elbow in your face. You pull the blanket tighter, noticing how the furs are patched together, some edges frayed from years of use. The longhouse's warmth is a blessing, but it's uneven. Your face is toasty from the fire pit's glow, but your feet are freezing where the draft sneaks in. You spot a woman across the room, tucking a toddler into a nook, singing something low and rhythmic. It's soothing, even if you don't understand the words, and you realize these sleeping spots, rough as they are the closest thing to home these Vikings have. You try to relax, but a goat bleats from the animal pen, and you laugh under your breath. Sleeping here is like napping in a barn during a family reunion. The bench creaks as you shift again, and you notice a carved rune on the wood. Maybe someone's initials or a charm for good dreams. It's a small touch, but it makes the nook feel personal, like a Viking version of a monogram pillow. You're not sure you'll sleep tonight, not with the smoke and the noise and the ever-present risk of rolling into the guy next to you. But as you settle in, the longhouse's rhythm, chaotic, smoky, alive, starts to feel less like chaos and more like a strange kind of comfort. You're part of this now, for better or worse, and you're already dreading the morning wake-up call. You ease off the creaky bench, still itching from that wool blanket, and make your way toward the center of the longhouse, where the air is thick with the savory aroma of smoked fish. Your stomach rumbles, and you realize it's mealtime in this 9th century Viking chaos. You're standing by the fire pit, where a woman is pulling skewers of herring from the smoky haze above the flames, their skins crispy and golden. The scent is overwhelming, Salty, rich, and just a bit too fishy for your modern nose, but it's food and you're hungry. You grab a piece, the flesh flaking apart in your fingers, and take a cautious bite. It's chewy, smoky, and surprisingly good, though you're already fishing a bone from your teeth. Welcome to dinner in a Viking Longhouse, where the menu is simple and the prep is anything but. The meal setup is a group effort, and you're roped in whether you like it or not. A man hands you a wooden bowl of barley porridge, still steaming from the clay pot by the fire. It's bland, like eating wet cardboard, but you scoop some up with a horn spoon. Try to look grateful. Around you, the longhouse hums with activity. Kids grab chunks of bread, someone slicing a wheel of hard cheese, and a teenager is hauling a bucket of water from a nearby stream. Viking diets, as pieced together from sites like Jorvik in England, leaned heavily on fish, barley, and whatever animals they could raise or hunt. Think mutton, pork, or the occasional deer. Fish, especially herring, was a staple, smoked or dried to last through winter. You're eating history, and it's sticking to your ribs. You glance at the woman handling the fish, her hands deftly gutting another batch to hang above the fire. The process is grim. Scales fly, guts plop into a bucket, and the smell makes you wince. Rather you than me, you mutter, and she chuckles, tossing a fish head to a dog lurking nearby. The dog's thrilled, but you're less enthused about the splatter on your boots. The work is relentless. Smoking fish, grinding grain, boiling water. It's a full-time job just to eat. You notice a kid sneaking a piece of bread, only to get a playful swat from an older woman. You smirk. Viking table manners aren't exactly Emily Post, but they've got their own rules. A quirky detail stands out. A small clay jar on a nearby table, filled with a sour-smelling paste. You lean closer and regret it. It's skyr, a kind of Viking yogurt, made from milk curdled with rennet from a sheep's stomach. Excavations in Denmark have found traces of dairy products like this, a protein-packed staple that's half cheese, half sour cream. You're offered a spoonful, and you hesitate, imagining the sheep's stomach part. Live a little, the woman says, her grin daring you. You try it, and it's tangy, thick, and not terrible, but you're not signing up for seconds. Historians still debate whether skyr was a daily food or a special treat. Some say it was a luxury. Others argue it was as common as bread. You settle onto a bench to eat, dodging a toddler who's chasing a crumb across the muddy floor. The longhouse is loud with chatter, clinking bowls and the fire's constant crackle. You notice the bread is flat and dense, baked on a hot stone by the fire, and you're grateful for it after the porridge. But the fish bones are a hazard. One wrong bite, and you're coughing like a rookie. The man next to you laughs, slapping your back. Chew slower, city folk, he says, and you roll your eyes but can't help grinning. Meals here aren't just about eating. They're a social glue, tying this crowded, smoky space together. You finish your herring, wiping your hands on your tunic, because napkins aren't a thing. The fire pit's glow lights up the faces around you, everyone eating, talking, or arguing over the last piece of cheese. You're starting to feel the weight of the longhouse's rhythm. Food is survival, but it's also a chore, a craft, and a community all at once. You glance at the fish still smoking above the fire, their silvery bodies swaying in the heat. It's not gourmet, but it's keeping you alive. You just hope tomorrow's menu has less bones. You linger near the fire pit, the taste of smoky herring still on your tongue, as the longhouse settles into the evening's quieter rhythm. The flames are lower now, casting a warm, flickering glow across the timber walls, and the air hums with a new kind of energy. You hear a deep voice rise above the usual clatter of bowls and bleating goats, drawing everyone's attention. An older man, his beard flecked with gray, has settled onto a bench, a horn of meat in hand, and he's starting to weave a saga. You're pulled in, finding a spot on a straw-strewn bench, as the shadows dance like ghosts on the walls. This is storytelling hour in a 9th century Viking longhouse, where tales of gods, heroes, and monsters are the night's entertainment. And you're about to get lost in it. The man's voice is low and rhythmic, almost hypnotic, as he recounts a story of Thor battling a serpent so massive it coils around the world. You lean forward, the smoky air forgotten, as he describes the thunder god's hammer crashing through storms. The Sagas, oral traditions passed down through generations, were the Vikings' way of preserving history, mythology, and moral lessons. Think of them as Netflix, but with more mead and fewer plot holes. The poetic Edda, a key source for Norse myths, was rooted in these fireside recitals, though written down centuries later. You notice the kids, who were wrestling over a crust of bread earlier, now sitting wide-eyed, utterly still. Even the goats seem to hush, though that's probably just your imagination. You shift on the bench, the straw poking through your tunic, and catch a glance from a woman nearby, her fingers busy weaving a basket, but her eyes locked on the storyteller. The shadows played tricks, making the carved beams above look like they're writhing with serpents or wolves. You smirk, thinking how these tales must hit differently when you're surrounded by actual darkness and howling winds outside. Hope Thor's on our side tonight, you whisper to the woman, and she grins, nodding toward the fire. Better than the serpent, she replies, and you both chuckle, though you're half serious about wanting divine backup in this drafty longhouse. A quirky detail stands out, a small wooden figure, maybe a foot tall, propped near the fire pit, its face worn smooth from years of handling. It's not Thor or Odin, but something vaguer, maybe a local spirit or ancestor, used as a storytelling prop. Archaeological finds from places like Uppsala, Sweden, suggest Vikings kept such carving for rituals or tales, tangible links to the stories they told. You imagine kids passing around, pretending it's the serpent or Thor himself, while the adults nod approvingly. Historians still argue whether these figures were purely symbolic or believed to hold actual power. Did the Vikings see them as art or as conduits to the divine? The saga shifts to a hero's journey. Some warrior named Sigurd slaying a dragon for gold that's more cursed than treasure. The storyteller's hands sweep through the air, mimicking a sword's arc, and you're hooked, even if you're not sure what's true or embellished. The longhouse feels smaller now, the walls closing in as the fires glow and a man's voice with a cocoon around you. You notice a teenager carving a stick, half listening, probably dreaming of his own saga-worthy adventure. You can't blame him. This place, with its mud and smoke, feels like it's begging for a hero to spice things up. The story ends with a warning about greed, and the room falls quiet, save for the fire's crackle and a distant dog's bark. You feel the weight of the tale, its lessons sinking in as you glance at the shadowed faces around you. The longhouse is a stage, and these sagas are heartbeat, binding everyone in this smoky, crowded space. You lean back, the bench creaking, and realize you're starting to drift, lulled by the rhythm of the words and the fire's warmth. But the night's not over yet, and the longhouse has more stories to tell. You're still catching your breath from a morning's chores, the faint smell of goat milk clinging to your hands, when a sharp gust rattles the longhouse's timber walls. The fire pit's glow flickers, and you feel a chill snake through the gaps in the wattle and daub, reminding you that winter's no joke in this 9th century Viking world. You pull your cloak tighter, the wool scratching your neck, and glance outside through a crack in the door. The sky is a bruised gray, snow flurries swirling like angry bees, and the wind howls like it's got a personal grudge. You're stuck inside this smoky, crowded longhouse, and winter's bite is about to test your endurance, along with everyone else's. The longhouse creaks ominously, its beams groaning under the wind's assault. You notice the family piling extra furs on the benches, their faces tense but practiced, like they've faced this beast before. Winter in Scandinavia, as archaeological records from sites like Trelleborg, Denmark, show, was a brutal season that could last months, forcing Vikings to hunker down with stored food and whatever heat the fire pit could muster. You help a man drag a heavy hide over a leaky section of the roof, the icy air stinging your fingers as you work. The thatch above is dusted with snow, and you're already dreading the moment a drip lands on your face tonight. Could be worse, you mutter, and the man grunts. Could be outside. Fair point. You shuffle back to the fire pit, where the flames are being coaxed higher with fresh logs. The smoke is thicker now, curling toward the roof's vent, but it's not enough to keep the cold at bay. You notice a woman stuffing straw into cracks in the walls, her hands red from the chill. The Longhouse is a fortress, built to withstand these storms, but it's not exactly cozy. You smirk, thinking how your modern thermostat would be a Viking superhero right now. Need a space heater? You joke to the woman, and she rolls her eyes, tossing you a rag to wipe your muddy hands. Humor doesn't quite land when everyone's focused on not freezing. A quirky detail catches your attention. A small pile of smooth stones near the fire pit, warmed by the flames and wrapped in cloth. You see a kid tuck one under a blanket, and it clicks. Viking hot water bottles. Excavations in Norway have found similar stones, likely used to warm beds or hands during winter's worst. You grab one. Its heat seeping into your palms, and feel a pang of gratitude for this low-tech genius. Historians still argue whether these stones were just practical or part of rituals. Some say they were heated for offerings, not just warmth. Either way, you're clutching yours like a lifeline, already planning to smuggle it to your sleeping nook. The wind howls louder, and you hear a faint crack from the roof, making everyone pause. A man climbs a rickety ladder to check the beams, muttering about the weather gods being in a mood. You're starting to understand why the Vikings were so big on Thor. Someone's got to tame this chaos. The Longhouse feels smaller now, the walls pressing in as the storm rages outside. You notice a teenager piling extra wood near the fire pit, his face set in that determined way kids get when they know the stakes. You help, hauling logs that smell faintly of pine, and realize winter isn't just a season here. It's a siege, and the Longhouse is your only defense. You settle near the fire, the warm stone still in your hands, and watch the family work together. Their movements quick but calm. The kids are quieter now, huddled under furs, and even the goats seem subdued, chewing their cud in the corner. The Longhouse groans again, but it holds. Its muddy floor and smoky air a stubborn stand against the cold. You're starting to respect this place, its creaks and all, for keeping you alive in this frozen world. But you're also hoping that wind dies down before your next trip to the latrine. You're still catching your breath from a morning's chores, the faint smell of goat milk clinging to your hands, when a sharp gust rattles the Longhouse's timber walls. The fire pit's glow flickers, and you feel a chill snake through the gaps in the wattle and daub, reminding you that winter's no joke in this 9th century Viking world. You pull your cloak tighter, the wool scratching your neck, and glance outside through a crack in the door. The sky is a bruised gray, snow flurries swirling like angry bees, and the wind howls like it's got a personal grudge. You're stuck inside this smoky, crowded Longhouse, and winter's bite is about to test your endurance, along with everyone else's. The Longhouse creaks ominously, its beams groaning under the wind's assault. You notice the family piling extra furs on the benches, their faces tense but practiced, like they've faced this beast before. Winter in Scandinavia, as archaeological records from sites like Trelleborg, Denmark, show, was a brutal season that could last months, forcing Vikings to hunker down with stored food and whatever heat the fire pit could muster. You help a man drag a heavy hide over a leaky section of the roof, the icy air stinging your fingers as you work. The thatch above is dusted with snow, and you're already dreading the moment a drip lands on your face tonight. Could be worse, you mutter, and the man grunts. Could be outside. Fair point. You shuffle back to the fire pit, where the flames are being coaxed higher with fresh logs. The smoke is thicker now, curling toward the roof's vent, but it's not enough to keep the cold at bay. You notice a woman stuffing straw into cracks in the walls, her hands red from the chill. The Longhouse is a fortress, built to withstand these storms, but it's not exactly cozy. You smirk, thinking how your modern thermostat would be a Viking superhero right now. Need a space heater? You joke to the woman, and she rolls her eyes, tossing you a rag to wipe your muddy hands. Humor doesn't quite land when everyone's focused on not freezing. A quirky detail catches your attention. A small pile of smooth stones near the fire pit, warmed by the flames and wrapped in cloth. You see a kid tuck one under a blanket, and it clicks. Viking hot water bottles. Excavations in Norway have found similar stones, likely used to warm beds or hands during winter's worst. You grab one. Its heat seeping into your palms, and feel a pang of gratitude for this low-tech genius. Historians still argue whether these stones were just practical or part of rituals. Some say they were heated for offerings, not just warmth. Either way, you're clutching yours like a lifeline, already planning to smuggle it to your sleeping nook. The wind howls louder, and you hear a faint crack from the roof, making everyone pause. A man climbs a rickety ladder to check the beams, muttering about the weather gods being in a mood. You're starting to understand why the Vikings were so big on Thor. Someone's got to tame this chaos. The Longhouse feels smaller now, the walls pressing in as the storm rages outside. You notice a teenager piling extra wood near the fire pit, his face set in that determined way kids get when they know the stakes. You help, hauling logs that smell faintly of pine, and realize winter isn't just a season here. It's a siege, and the Longhouse is your only defense. You settle near the fire, the warm stone still in your hands, and watch the family work together. Their movements quick but calm. The kids are quieter now, huddled under furs, and even the goats seem subdued, chewing their cud in the corner. The Longhouse groans again, but it holds. Its muddy floor and smoky air stubborn stand against the cold. You're starting to respect this place, its creaks and all, for keeping you alive in this frozen world. But you're also hoping that wind dies down before your next trip to the latrine. You're still shivering from the winter wind's howl, the warm stone from the fire pit now cooling in your hands as you navigate the crowded Longhouse, its smoky air thick with the chatter and clatter of too many people in too little space. You're in a 9th century Viking home, and privacy is as mythical as a dragon's hoard here. You try to find a quiet corner, but every step means dodging a kid chasing a wooden toy, a woman weaving on a loom, or a man sharpening a knife with a whetstone's rhythmic scrape. The Longhouse is a living, breathing tangle of bodies, noise, and smells, smoked fish, sweat, and damp wool, and you're starting to wonder if you'll ever get a moment to yourself. This is communal chaos, Viking style, and you're right in the thick of it. You squeeze onto a bench, hoping for a breather, but a toddler immediately climbs into your lap, smearing porridge on your tunic. You sigh, realizing personal space isn't a concept here. Longhouses, as shown in archaeological digs like those at Firket, Denmark, were designed for extended families, sometimes 20 to 30 people plus animals, living under one roof, sharing everything from food to firewood. You glance around, seeing generations crammed together, grandparents mending nets, parents tending the fire, kids wrestling in the straw. It's a noisy, messy ecosystem, and you're just another cog, whether you like it or not. You nudge the toddler off gently, muttering, "Go find your own bench, kid," and get a giggle in response. The chaos isn't random, though it's a system. You notice a woman passing a bowl of skyr to an older man, who nods thanks without pausing his carving. Nearby, a teenager is teaching a younger sibling to braid rope, their hands moving in sync. Everyone's got a role, and the Longhouse thrives on this unspoken teamwork. You're handed a wooden cup of watery ale, and you take a sip, wincing at the sour kick. Tastes like regret. You joke to the guy next to you, who laughs and claps your shoulder. He's mending a boot, his fingers quick despite the calluses, and you realize this constant bustle is what keeps the Longhouse alive through winter's grip. A quirky detail catches your eye, a small, carved wooden divider, barely knee-high, stuck in the mud floor near a family's sleeping nook. It's not much, but it's a stab at claiming space in this open sprawl. Excavations in Sweden have found similar markers, sometimes stones or wood, used to subtly separate family areas, like a Viking version of a cubicle wall. You smirk, imagining someone proudly setting it up only for a goat to knock it over. Historians still argue whether these dividers were about status, practicality, or just a desperate bid for sanity in a packed house. Either way, you're tempted to borrow one to keep that porridge-smeared toddler at bay. You try to stand, but someone's elbow jostles you, and a dog darts underfoot, nearly tripping you into the fire pit. You catch yourself, muttering about needing a traffic light in here. The Longhouse is a pressure cooker of noise and motion, and you're starting to feel like you're in a medieval reality show with no exit. You spot a woman yelling at two kids for stealing her weaving shuttle, and you can't help but laugh. She's got the energy of mom refereeing a soccer game. The chaos is exhausting, but there's a warmth to it, a sense that everyone's in this together, sharing the burdens and the bad ale. You finally carve out a spot near the wall, leaning against the cool timber, and watch the scene unfold. The fire pit crackles, casting shadows that make the crowded room feel almost cozy. You're starting to see the rhythm and the madness. Every shout, every shared task, every stolen bite of bread binds this group tighter. The Longhouse isn't just a shelter. It's a living thing, and you're part of its pulse, whether you're dodging toddlers or sipping sour ale. You're still reeling from the Longhouse's crowded chaos. The toddler's porridge smear now a crusty badge on your tunic. As you weave through the smoky air toward a corner, where a man is hunched over a workbench. His hands move with quiet precision, carving a bone comb, its teeth fine and sharp. You're in a 9th century Viking longhouse, and this is a craft and trade hub, a gritty workshop where tools, trinkets, and treasures are made, bartered, and prized. The fire pit's glow catches the bone's sheen, and you lean closer, dodging a stray spark, to watch the man etch a simple rune into the comb's handle. This isn't just busy work. It's survival, status, and a ticket to goods from lands you've never seen. You're about to get a front row seat to the Viking hustle. The workbench is cluttered with tools, knives, awls, and a small hammer, scattered among scraps of bone, wood, and leather. You pick up a half-finished bead, its surface scratched with smooth, and roll it in your fingers. Vikings were master crafters, their goods found as far as Byzantium and Baghdad, according to trade networks mapped from sites like Birka, Sweden. This longhouse is a production line. Combs, beads, even iron nails hammered out by the fire pit, all destined for local use or trade for silver, spices, or cloth. You're handed a knife and a piece of antler, with a gruff, "Make yourself useful." You start carving, or at least try, and immediately nick your finger. "City hands," the man mutters, smirking, and you laugh, already regretting your lack of Viking street cred. You glance around, noticing others at work. A woman is spinning wool into thread, her spindle whirling like a tiny planet, while a teenager polishes amber beads, their glow catching the firelight. The longhouse is a marketplace in miniature, where every crafted item is currency. You imagine trading your sad antler attempt for a loaf of bread, or maybe just forgiveness for the nick in the workbench. The man shows you his comb, now finished, its rune spelling a name, maybe his or a buyer's. You're impressed, but also wondering how many combs one village needs. "Keeps the lice at bay," he says, as if reading your mind, and you chuckle, picturing a Viking beauty salon in this muddy chaos. A quirky detail stands out, a small pile of walrus ivory scraps, chipped and yellowed, tucked behind the workbench. Vikings prized ivory for high-value items like game pieces or knife handles, often traded from far-off Greenland, as finds from Hedeby confirm. You pick up a scrap, its weight surprising, and imagine some Viking haggling over with a merchant who sailed through icy seas. Historians still argue whether longhouses were crafting hubs year-round or just in winter when farming slowed. Some say these were seasonal workshops. Others insist crafting was a daily grind. Either way, you're glad to be carving and not out in the howling wind you hear rattling the walls again. You keep at your antler, your cuts getting slightly less terrible, while the man barters his coal with a woman for a sack of dried apples. The deal sealed with a nod, no coins needed, just trust and a shared need to survive. You're starting to see the Longhouse as more than a home. It's a factory, a market, a lifeline to the wider world. You fumble the knife again, earning another smirk from a man. "Stick to eating fish," he says, and you laugh, conceding defeat. The fire pit crackles nearby, and you notice the teenager now stringing those amber beads into a necklace, probably for a trade that'll bring something new to this smoky world. You set down your mangled antler, hand-sore but oddly satisfied. The Longhouse hums with purpose. Every carved bone, every spun thread a step toward thriving in this harsh life. You're a part of it now, even if your crafting skills are more comedy than commerce. The man offers you a sip of his mead as a consolation prize, and you take it, the sweet burn a small reward for surviving the Viking hustle. You're still nursing your pride from that botched antler carving, the faint sting of mead lingering on your tongue, as you move through the Longhouse's smoky haze toward a small gathering at the far end. The air feels heavier here, charged with quiet intensity, and you notice a group kneeling around a wooden table, its surface stained with dark splashes. A woman is muttering softly, her hands arranging a pile of bones and herbs, while others watch with solemn faces. You're in a 9th century Viking longhouse, and this is a blot, a ritual offering to the gods, steeped in reverence and the faint steam of blood. You pause, caught between curiosity and the urge to stay out of the way, as the Longhouse's daily chaos fades into this sacred moment. The woman, her hair braided tight, places a small bowl of barley and a sheep's bone on the table, then sprinkles it with ale from a horn. The fire pit's glow casts long shadows, making the scene feel like it's unfolding in a different world. Viking blots, as described in sagas and confirmed by finds at sites like Uppsala, Sweden, were communal rituals to honor gods like Odin or Freyr, often tied to harvest, health, or protection. This one smaller, a household affair, but no less serious. You kneel nearby, try not to disrupt, and feel the weight of eyes on you. Newcomers don't get a free pass in sacred spaces. "Don't touch the bones," a man whispers sharply, and you nod, keeping your hands firmly in your lap. The woman chants, her voice low and rhythmic, asking Freyr for a mild winter. She slices her palm with a small knife, letting a few drops of blood drip onto the bones, and you wince, not expecting the intensity. The offering is simple, grain blood of prayer, but it's raw, tying this muddy, smoky longhouse to the unseen forces the Vikings revered. You notice the others joining in, some adding herbs or a coin to the table. Their face is a mix of hope and resignation. You're handed a sprig of thyme to toss in, and you do it, feeling like an extra in a cosmic drama. "Hope Freyr likes my aim," you mutter, and a kid nearby stifles a giggle, breaking the tension for a moment. A quirky detail catches your eye. A small clay figure, no bigger than your thumb, tucked among the offerings. It's crudely shaped, maybe a horse or a person, with tiny dots for eyes. Excavations in Norway have found similar figures, often buried near ritual sites, possibly as stand-ins for sacrifices when a real animal wasn't available. You imagine someone molding it with muddy fingers, whispering a plea for luck. Historians still argue whether these household blots were as common as grand public ones. Some say every longhouse did them. Others think they were rare, reserved for crises. Either way, you're glad you're not the one wielding the knife today. The ritual ends with the woman pouring the ale-soaked barley into the fire pit, the flames hissing as they consume it. The group disperses, some lingering to murmur prayers, others return to their chores like nothing happened. You stand, your knees stiff from kneeling, and notice the air feels lighter as if the Longhouse exhaled. The fires crackle and the distant bleat of a goat pull you back to reality. But the moment lingers, a reminder that this place is as much about spirits as it is about survival. You glance at the table, now empty except for a faint bloodstain, and wonder what Frere thought of your time toss. You shuffle back toward the fire pit. The rituals wait still on you, and spot the woman cleaning her knife with a rag. She catches your eye and nods, a silent acknowledgement that you didn't mess it up. You're starting to feel the Longhouse's dual pulse. Practical grind and quiet faith, woven together like the straw in the mud floor. You're not sure if you believe in Frere, but you're hoping that offering buys you a warmer night. You step away from the ritual table, the faint scent of burnt barley and thyme still clinging to the air, and weave through the Longhouse's smoky bustle, where the mood has shifted to something lighter. The fire pit's glow catches a group of kids huddled in a corner, their laughter sharp and wild as they toss knucklebones across the muddy floor. You're in a 9th century Viking longhouse, and these children's games are a burst of chaos in the daily grind, a reminder that even in this smoky, crowded world, kids find a way to make their own fun. You pause, drawn to their shrieks and clatter of bones, and decide to watch, hoping to catch a break from the Longhouse's endless chores. The kids, maybe 5 or 6 of them, are sprawled on a patch of straw, their hands smudged with dirt and fish grease. The game is simple. Toss the knucklebones, small sheep bones, polished from use, and try to land them in a certain pattern. It's like Viking dice, but with higher stakes and worse hygiene. One boy, maybe 8, crows as he wins a round, snatching a carved wooden peg from his friend, who's already plotting revenge. You smirk, remembering that cheating kid from earlier, tossing bones by the fire pit. Same hustle, smaller scale. You mutter, and a girl nearby glances up, sticking out her tongue before diving back into the game. You kneel to get a better look, the straw prickling your knees to the mud floor. The knuckle bones are scattered, some etched with tiny marks, maybe the track points or just for flair. Archaeological digs, like those at Birka, Sweden, have turned up these bones in droves, suggesting they were a go-to game for kids and even adults when the mead was flowing. The kids are loud, their voices bouncing off the timber walls, and you notice the adults don't seem to mind. Probably glad the little terrors are occupied. You're tempted to join, but the last thing you need is to lose a wooden peg to a smug 8-year-old. A quirky detail stands out. One of the kids is clutching a small leather pouch, stuffed with what looks like dried beans or pebbles, used as a makeshift ball for another game. Finds from sites in Norway show these pouches were common, often filled with whatever was handy, seeds, stones, even fish bones, for tossing or kicking in rough-and-tumble play. You imagine the chaos of a beanbag game in this crowded space, probably ending with someone's porridge getting knocked over. Historians still argue whether these games were just for fun or taught skills like dexterity for hunting or fighting. Some say they were training, others insist kids were just being kids. Either way, you're not volunteering to referee this mess. You watch as the game shifts to a new challenge. The kids stack the bones into a wobbly tower, daring each other to pull one without toppling it. It's Viking Jenga, and it's as tense as any saga. The tower falls, and the kids erupt in laughter, blaming each other with wild gestures. You chuckle, thinking how these games are a lifeline, a way to burn energy when winter traps everyone inside. A woman nearby, mending a net, shoots the kids a mock stern look, but can't hide her smile. "Keep it down or you're milking the goats," she warns, and you laugh, knowing that threat's probably more effective than any modern timeout. You lean back against a beam, the fire pit's warmth barely reaching you, and feel the Longhouse's rhythm shift again. The kids' games are a spark of joy in this smoky, muddy world, a reminder that life here isn't just survival. It's living, messy, and loud. You're starting to like these little troublemakers, even if you're not signing up for their bone-tossing league anytime soon. The fire crackles, the kids shriek, and you're caught in the middle, wondering what other chaos this Longhouse has in store. You ease away from the kids' raucous knucklebones game, their laughter still ringing in your ears, and navigate the Longhouse's smoky haze, your boots sticking slightly to the muddy floor. The air's thick with the usual mix of wood smoke, fish, and sweat, and you're starting to notice how your tunic feels like it's fused to your skin. You're in a 9th century Viking longhouse, and hygiene here is less about spa days and more about survival-level scrubbing. You catch a whiff of yourself. Yep, you're officially part of the longhouse aroma, and it's not a good look. You spot a woman near the fire pit, scrubbing her hands with a grayish paste, and decide it's time to figure out how Vikings kept from turning into walking compost piles. You approach the woman, who's working the paste into her skin with grim determination. She hands you a rough lump of it, and you sniff cautiously ash, fat, and something vaguely herbal like a campfire gone wrong. This is Viking soap, made from wood ash and animal fat, as confirmed by chemical traces found in clay pots at sites like York, England. You rub it between your hands, and it lathers weakly, leaving a gritty film. It's not exactly lavender-scented, but it's better than nothing. You start scrubbing, wincing as the ash scrapes your knuckles. Feels like sanding my skin off, you mutter, and the woman chuckles, nodding toward a bucket of water. Better than lice, she says, and you can't argue with that logic. You splash water from the bucket, ice cold and probably hauled from a stream half a mile away. Bathing here is a chore. No hot showers, no privacy, just a corner of the longhouse where you hope no one's watching. You notice a man nearby, scraping his beard with a bone comb, muttering about fleas. The longhouse's crowded setup, with humans and animals sharing space, makes hygiene a constant battle. You're tempted to dunk your whole head in the bucket, but the water's murky, and you're not sure what's floating in it. You glance at the woman, now rinsing her hands, and joke, "Got a hot tub around here?" She snorts, shaking her head. Dream on, city folk. A quirky detail catches your eye, a small bundle of twigs tied with string, hanging near the fire pit. It's a makeshift toothbrush, used with ash or herbs to scrub teeth, as seen in rare finds from Viking graves in Sweden. You imagine chewing on a twig to clean your teeth, and it's not exactly mini fresh vibes. Historians still argue whether Vikings were as grimy as stereotypes suggest. Some point to combs and grooming tools as proof of care, while others say bathing was a rare luxury, reserved for special occasions. Either way, you're not thrilled about your dental options here, especially after that fish-heavy dinner stuck in your molars. You keep scrubbing, the soap's grit taking off a layer of longhouse grime, but leaving you feeling only marginally cleaner. Across the room, a kid is splashing water on his face, giggling as he flicks drops at his sister. It's a rare, light moment, but it reminds you how precious water is here. Every bucket is a trek, every wash a small victory. You notice a woman boiling water over the fire pit, probably to clean clothes or sterilize a wound, and you're struck by the effort it takes to stay even remotely clean. Your modern shampoo bottle feels like a lost treasure, and you're half tempted to barter that sad antler carving from earlier for a proper bath. You dry your hands on your tunic, which is basically a dirt magnet at this point, and step back, the fire pit's warmth a small comfort against the damp chill seeping through the walls. The longhouse's hygiene game is a struggle, but there's a stubborn pride in it. Every scrub, every bucket of water is a stand against the chaos of this muddy, smoky life. You're not exactly fresh, but you're surviving, and that's enough for now. You just hope the next bath doesn't involve sharing water with that goat you milked earlier. You're still gritty from that ash soap scrub, the longhouse's smoky air clinging to your freshly washed hands as you shuffle through the crowded space, dodging a kid chasing a stray chicken. The fire pit's glow is steady now, But you feel a shift in the Longhouse's rhythm, like the whole place is breathing with the seasons. You're in a 9th century Viking world, and life here revolves around the ebb and flow of summer's endless light and winter's crushing dark. You notice the family adjusting, storing extra wood, mending nets, preparing for the next turn of the calendar. It's a cycle as old as the muddy floor beneath you, and you're starting to feel its pulse, even if your boots are still caked with evidence of last week's rain. You pause near a woman sorting dried herbs, her fingers quick as she bundles them for winter storage. The air carries a faint whiff of thyme and smoke, and you realize the Longhouse is a machine tuned to the seasons. In summer, as sagas and archaeological records from Ribe, Denmark describe, Vikings worked outside, farming barley, fishing, or raiding, leaving the Longhouse area open. Now, with winter's chill creeping in, the space feels smaller, packed with supplies and people bracing for months indoors. You help stack a pile of firewood, your hands splintered and sore, and mutter, "This better last till spring." The woman chuckles, tossing you a dried apple. "Keep stacking, and it might," she says, her grin sharp but kind. You move to a corner where a man is repairing a fishing net, his hands weaving twine with a rhythm that feels almost meditative. The Longhouse adapts with the seasons. Summer's bounty of fish and crops gets smoked or stored, while winter demands patching leaks and hoarding every scrap of warmth. You notice the kids are quieter now, helping to sort barley grains instead of tossing knucklebones. It's a shift from the chaos you saw earlier, a tightening of focus as the days grow shorter. You're tempted to joke about needing a Viking calendar app, but the man's focused frown stops you. "Winter waits for no one," he says, and you nod, feeling the weight of the darkening sky outside. A quirky detail catches your eye, a small clay pot filled with pine resin, tucked near the fire pit, its sticky scent cutting through the usual fishy haze. Vikings used it to seal boat planks or waterproof boots, as found in traces at sites like Hedeby, Germany. You dip a finger in, wincing at the tacky pull, and imagine slathering on your boots to survive the muddy spring. Historians still argue whether seasonal tasks were strictly planned or a chaotic scramble. Some say longhouses ran like clockwork. Others insist it was survival by improvisation. Either way, you're impressed by the foresight, even if your stack of firewood looks more like a toddler's art project. You glance outside through a crack in the wall, where the light is fading fast, casting the Longhouse in a golden gray glow. The seasons shape everything here. Wanna fish? Wanna huddle? Wanna pray for Freyr's favor? Like that blot you witnessed earlier. You help the woman tie another bundle of herbs, your fingers fumbling compared to hers, and she teases, "You'd starve in winter." You laugh, but the truth stings. Surviving here means knowing the land's rhythm like your own heartbeat. The Longhouse is a cocoon, adapting to summer sprawl or winter siege, and you're starting to respect its stubborn resilience. You settle near the fire pit, the warmth a small rebellion against the chill seeping through the walls. The family's movements are a quiet dance, storing, mending, preparing, and you feel the Longhouse's pulse syncing with the seasons. You're a part of it now, even if your herb bundling skills are as shaky as that antler carving you butchered. The cycle rolls on, and you're ready for whatever the next season throws at this muddy, smoky home. You're still feeling the Longhouse's seasonal rhythm, the faint stickiness of pine resin on your fingers from helping with winter prep, as you settle onto a bench near the fire pit. The smoky air is softer now, the Longhouse quieter, its usual chaos winding down as night wraps the timber walls in a hush. You're in a 9th century Viking world, and the day's bustle, milking goats, dodging kids, surviving that gritty soap scrub, is fading into a dreamy haze. The fire's glow flickers, casting gentle shadows, and you feel the weight of the Longhouse's life settling over you like a heavy wool blanket. It's time to drift, to let this muddy, smoky world blur into something softer as the stories, smells, and sounds melt into the night. You lean back, the bench creaking under you, and notice the family easing into their own evening rituals. A woman hums a low tune, tucking a child into a fur-lined nook, while a man pokes a fire, sending a final spark toward the roof's vent. The longhouse is a living thing, its muddy floor and smoky air a testament to survival, but now it feels like a cocoon, warm and close despite the winter's chill outside. Viking longhouses, as digs at sites like Lance UX Meadow Show, were built to endure, their walls holding generations of stories, from sagas to squabbles over the last bite of skier. You smile, remembering that sour yogurt paste and your less-than-heroic attempt at carving a bone comb. The air carries a faint whiff of smoked fish, a reminder of the meal you shared, bones and all. You glance at the fire pit, where the embers glow like tiny stars, and spot that small carved figure from the blot ritual, still tucked in its niche. It's a quiet nod to the gods, to the life you've glimpsed here, grueling, messy, but fiercely alive. Historians still argue whether these longhouses were permanent homes or seasonal hubs, but tonight it doesn't matter. You're here, wrapped in the warmth of this crowded, creaking space, and it's enough. You chuckle softly, thinking how that goat you milked probably still holds a grudge. A quirky detail lingers, a single knucklebones piece, forgotten on the floor, glinting in the firelight. It's a relic of the kids' games, a tiny anchor to the laughter that cut through the longhouse's grind. You pick it up, rolling it in your palm, and feel a strange connection to the hands that tossed it before you. The longhouse is fading now, its sound softening. The fire's crackle, the hum of a lullaby, the distant bleat of a sheep. You're drifting, the bench beneath you less uncomfortable, the smoke less stinging. The Viking world is slipping away, but its heartbeat lingers, steady and warm. And now, let's slow things down, let the longhouse's smoky glow fade into a gentle blur. You're sinking deeper into the bench, the wool blanket heavy but soft, wrapping you in the warmth of a world that's carried you through mud, fish, and firelight. The crackle of the fire pit softens, like a whisper from the embers, telling you it's okay to let go. The voices of the family, the clatter of knucklebones, the creak of the beams, they're drifting now, blending into a quiet hum, like the wind outside but kinder, softer. You're safe here, in this moment, the longhouse holding you as it has held so many before. The seasons will turn, the fire will burn low. But for now, you're floating weightless, the smoky air a gentle cradle. Let your eyes close, let your breath slow, and let the Viking world slip away, leaving only warmth, only peace. Sleep now, carried by the longhouse's last whispering glow.